For centuries, the galaxy trusted its ancient star maps. They were sacred records, older than most empires, older than many languages, older even than the idea of a council to manage the peace between worlds and people told their children. The maps had never been wrong and would never be wrong because stars did not lie and orbits did not forget. But one night, inside the Galactic archive, under cold lights and quiet air and the low hum of cooling units, a scanner lifted a veil and showed a strange truth. One world had been erased. And there was no record, no name, no reason, only a black gap where a planet should be. And the gap sat like a wound in a perfect sky. The young alien archivist who noticed it was named Terran, and he had eyes like quiet water and hands that shook only when he was excited, not when he was afraid. And on that night, his hands shook from excitement because he loved errors the way a hunter loves tracks and snow. Since errors told a story, and he leaned close to the display and spoke softly to the machine because he always did that, as if respect could make a machine kinder. "Run it again," he said. The machine ran the map again. The oldest record. The one every academy used. The one every ship carried in a sealed vault. A lattice of lines appeared, like roads between stars. Names glowed in gentle colors. Distances feathered out in thin numbers. Then the region near the trade lanes shifted into view, and where there should have been a string of faint dwarf suns, and a middle yellow star with 3 habitable zones, there was a hole, a clean slice, mute square that swallowed light, and came with a note that read only, "Null sector, integrity verified." Terran's pupils narrowed. Null sector meant danger, yes, but it also meant an area had never been charted. This one had been charted and then removed, and the map said integrity verified, which made no sense, and he felt a small, cold wind move through his chest, as if something old had just walked into the room. He called up backups of backups. He pulled versions from a century ago, from 5 centuries ago. From the 1st century when the map had been digitized and the old glass plates put away, every version had the same hole. The hole looked different in each style, but it was still a hole. It was as if someone had gone back to the start and cut a square out of time. He set the machine to cross-check with survey logs. The survey logs said ships had jumped through that area many times, but their record packets had wide bands of static exactly when they passed the coordinates of the hole. He traced the static and found it had a shape. It was not natural. It was like a hand pressed hard into wet sand. He stood there for a long minute and listened to the archive. Far shelves sang with the tone of sleeping servers. Security drones floated in gentle circles under the ceiling, pretending not to watch. The night shift spoke in low voices at distant desks. Outside, beyond the vault walls, the city slept on. Tiered platforms and the stars were hidden behind a pale shield. But Terran did not need the real sky because the one in front of him was older and more honest, and it had just lied. He saved a screenshot and put it into a report. He fixed his coat and tried to smooth his crest with a wet thumb, the way his mother had done when he was small, and walked fast toward the council wing, because if a map could be wrong, then someone needed to know, and he did not know yet that knowing was the dangerous part. The council chamber looked like a bowl made of polished stone. Seats rose in rings. Banners hung behind them. The air smelled like salt and old leather. 6 elders sat that night in a closed session, which was the rule for late matters that were supposed to be simple. Terran waited at the door until the usher nodded. He walked in with his pad clutched to his chest. He bowed in the way his people did. He kept his voice plain. "Honored Council, I found an inconsistency in the prime star map. It appears a world was removed. I ran integrity checks. The map says verified. It cannot be verified if it is wrong." One of the elders, a wide-browed woman with soft hands, smiled in a tired way. "Archivist, the map is not wrong. The record shows a null zone there." "It was always null." "It was not always null," Terran said, and he heard his own voice sound too strong, which was not wise in this room. But the idea of a hole in the oldest map made his bones burn. Survey logs show passage through those coordinates. Static appears at the exact position of a midline star. Static is not chance. Static is a blanket. A thin elder named Veros tapped the arm of his chair. The prime map has been checked every century by a committee older than you are, young one. If there is a glitch, it is in your console, not in the map. And if there is static in a log, it is from cheap equipment or smugglers who like to hide their lanes. Terran swallowed and forced his hand to be still. I used 3 consoles. Hole appears in every copy. Integrity verified was retroactive. The checksum does not match its own provenance. Someone stamped the seal after the removal. It should have been a strong point. Should have made the room lean in. Instead, the elders leaned back as if a draft had come through. Another elder, the oldest, cleared his throat. Archivist Terran, you work with ghosts all night, and you see ghosts everywhere in the morning. This is a null sector. The map is clean. Your energy is admirable. Your conclusion is not dismissed. He wanted to argue. He wanted to make them see the square cut out of the sky. He wanted to show them the way the static bent in a curve that meant an object had been there and was now not there. But the ushers. Hand touched his sleeve in a soft warning. He bowed again and left, and felt heat climb his neck. They had laughed inside their eyes. They had called it a glitch without using the word. He stood outside the chamber and looked through the clear stone wall to the gallery behind it, where dignitaries watched through one-way glass when they wanted to be invisible. 3 figures sat there. They were not like the others. They were broad at the shoulders and straight in the back even after a long night. They wore dark cloth with no metal, and their eyes were small and bright and alive like sparks under ash. They were human. Terran had read about humans in forbidden texts. He had seen 3 pictures in a black folder in a drawer he should not have opened. The folder said, Species. H. sapiens classification debated. The note said dangerous. The note said clever. The note said too adaptable, too fast, too fierce. And that they disappeared long ago for reasons unknown, and the last picture had a line across it that read, Distribution. Expunged, the human delegation had arrived last month and had taken a suite off the quiet corridor and had spoken little, and had asked for archive access under the old treaty clauses. Nobody used anymore because nobody seemed to remember why they existed. They walked the halls like cats that had returned to a house that had been repainted. They looked at everything with a little softness and a little hurt. One of them, a tall woman with pale hair braided tight, met Terran's eyes through the glass. Her face did not move. Her gaze did. It moved like an old weapon being polished. Terran looked away first. When he looked back, the 3 humans had risen. They left the gallery by a private door that slid and sealed without sound. He went back to his desk because he still had a job. He ran the check again because he could not help it. He set the machine to scrape dust off the edges of the hole, the way a child scrapes dirt to see a seed. He found metadata buried under the retroactive seal, and the metadata was old. Older than the council members, older than the new chamber, and the tag on it was a code he had seen only once in a book with a broken spine. Protocol, null-world.he. Whispered the words, and the drone above him paused, and then moved on, as if it had heard something it did not wish to hear. He opened a side file and searched for the protocol. The system asked for a key. He did not have the key. He had a friend who knew how to find keys. He typed a quick message, did not send it because he felt someone behind him. It is late for you, said a calm voice. He turned. The human woman stood there alone. Up close, her face looked like a carved thing that work and weather had smoothed. She had a scar by one eye and deep lines at the corners that came from laughing or not sleeping. She wore a simple coat and no rank marks, which told Terran she had rank. Archivist, she said, and his name was not a question, which meant his badge had told her, or she already knew. Captain, he said. He had not been told she was a captain, but he knew. And she seemed to accept that without comment. You found a square of nothing, she said, eyes flicking to the floating map, which showed a neutral display of the spinward marches, as if nothing at all was wrong. And you took it to the council. Alice. They called it a glitch, he said. He tried to smile and could not. I have not yet learned how to treat a lie with humor. That is good, she said. Do not learn that. He did not understand why his throat tightened. He pointed at the console. Captain, this removal is not only in the copy, it is in the root. Someone went to the oldest level and tore out a world and then fixed the stamp and pretended it had always been so. And do you know which world it was? She asked, and her voice did not change. But something hard in it slid into place like a seal being pressed. I do not, he said. And then the truth pushed in from the corner of his mind, and he did. He had not wanted to think the name because the name was heavy, like a stone you do not set on a thin table. He said it anyway, very quietly. It was Earth. The woman looked at him for a long time in silence, and it felt like a test he had not studied for, but could not afford to fail. She nodded once. You should go home for the night, Archivist Terran. You should rest. They will report me, he said, for making a claim, for touching a seal, for losing my temper. They might, she said. But if they wanted you gone, you would already be gone. And if they wanted you blind, they would give you a promotion. He laughed once because the sentence fit too well. Why would they erase an entire world from a map that children use in school? She did not answer. She looked past him at the hole he had forced the machine to show again. It looked like a pupil in a black eye. Maps can be changed, she said. Memory is harder. That is why children sing, archivist. It is why old stories are told in kitchens, not in halls. He wanted to ask 1,000 questions. He wanted to ask if her people had lived in secret, if they had watched while the rest of the galaxy pretended not to remember them, if the treaty clauses were kept alive like seeds in jars waiting for spring. But her eyes said enough. They said yes, and also said not here. When she left, the air felt different. Terran leaned over the console. He should stop. He should go home and sleep, and return beat down and quiet in the morning. Instead, he sent the message to his friend who knew keys. The reply was a single string of numbers and a warning. This is a bad door, do not open. He opened it. The old unfolded like a dry leaf. It was simple. It listed steps to erase an identity from public. Charts. It listed the right places to remove data, so the removal looked like an oversight, then a misunderstanding, then a tradition. It gave a schedule. It said, after 3 generations, no one will ask anymore. After 5, the name will sound like a myth. After 10, the name will be a law you are not allowed to say. Terran stared at the line. He looked at the date, counted. The generations matched. He tried to breathe and found his chest felt tight. He closed the protocol. He wiped the search trail, sat very still for a while, because that was how you kept panic from becoming action, and action was what got. You seen? Then he did what he had never done. Packed the real map crystal, the one clerks were not supposed to touch, into a cloak pocket, because the real map carried fingerprints the copies could not hide. On his way out, he saw 2 security drones, positioned in a way that looked casual if you did not know how drones thought. They were angled to catch the faces of people who left by the side door. He used the main door and smiled at the guard and said he had eaten too much tea, and they both laughed because that was not how anyone used words in this city, but it worked anyway. He walked into the night. The city's tears glowed blue under. The shield and the air felt like brushed glass. He walked quickly, keeping to the edges of light. He passed a vendor closing a cart and 2 children playing the quiet tapping game of the dock quarter and a preacher singing a hymn without words. Far above, ships moved like bright grains in a slow current. He felt the crystal against his side and imagined it hot. He did not look back because looking back is how you see the thing you do not want to see. He reached his small unit and sealed the door and put the crystal in the kitchen. Sink under a dishcloth because if someone came and asked to see it, he wanted to be able to say honestly he did not know where it was at that exact second. He laughed once at his own foolish logic and sat at the table, put his head in his hands. He should sleep. He could not. His door pinged. He jumped so hard his chair scraped. He waited. The ping came again, soft, patient, polite. He went to the screen and saw a messenger, not a soldier, not a drone, A young runner from the inner offices, blue sash over one shoulder, tired, breathing fast. "Archivist, Terran?" the runner asked when the door slid. "You are requested? Requested where?" "Adi," Tareen asked, and his voice steadied, because he had decided his life would be simple. And if you decide that, it becomes true for at least the length of a sentence. "Private Council Gallery," the runner said. Now he followed. The runner trotted ahead. The city hummed in its late hour. The gallery door opened for them, and then closed with the sound of a lid placed on a jar. The three humans stood by the clear wall, looking down into the sleeping chamber. The woman turned. Two men flanked her. One was younger, with eyes like winter. The other had gray in his beard and a limp that did not make him slow. The woman lifted a hand in greeting. "Archivist." He bowed because it felt right. He waited because that also felt right. She looked at him and then at the dark chamber below and then back at him and said, "Do you know why the council laughed at you?" "'Cause I am young and I believe what I see," he said. "Because they remember what they did." She said. He felt the words move through him like a quiet charge. He opened his mouth and did not know what to say, so he closed it again. She gestured to the wall. "Look." He looked. The chamber below was empty. The dais sat like a waiting hand. The banners hung still. Then, very softly, the room brightened. In a circle on the floor, as if a small star had lain down inside the stone, the circle blinked once. It blinked again. "The archive scanners are not the only ones that can see," the younger man said, and his voice had an old edge. "What is that?" Terran asked. "A handshake," the older man said. "An old one. A beacon that only turns on when someone looks in the right way." Terran swallowed. His mouth felt dry. "What does it say?" The woman did not smile. She did not change her voice. She took one step closer to the glass and spoke as if she were speaking to the stone itself. "It says that something hidden is no longer hidden." Terran's thoughts went to the square hole in the map, to the tag that said integrity, to the protocol that taught erasure like a song. He thought of the children who learned the map and of the elders who told them questions were rude when they pointed at the blank. He thought of the human delegation walking the halls softly like memories made of flesh. He thought of Earth, and the way the word felt like a shape everyone's mouth used to know. The woman leaned in, when for a second he saw not the captain in quiet cloth but a kind of gravity around her, a command pulled tight like a bow. She whispered then, not to him but to the air. And the whisper still reached him, and it was the kind of whisper that could start wars or stop them. They found it. Terran did not ask who they were. He did not ask what it was. He knew. Everyone would know soon. Outside in the shielded night, the ships kept moving like grains in a current. The gallery light dimmed. Somewhere deep in the archive, a machine woke and began to copy a file that had been sleeping for a very long time. Somewhere further than any city, further than any banner. Further even than the reach of trade lanes. Something old turned its face toward the place, where a square hole had been cut from a map and where a name had been removed from the wind. And it listened, and then it began to move. For days after the discovery, the halls of the Galactic Archive carried whispers. Not spoken openly, not written in reports, but murmured in shadows. Traded between clerks who trusted each other and guarded like forbidden coins. The archivist Tareen walked those halls as if every whisper was aimed at him. He had shown the hole in the Prime Star map to the council, and they had laughed at him. But laughter, he realized, was sometimes a mask for fear. Tareen knew the council. Should have silenced him quickly if they truly believed it was only a glitch, but they hadn't. They had dismissed him in public and let him walk free. That meant one thing. They were afraid of drawing more eyes to the hole, and still the whispers grew. Clerks spoke of null sectors, of worlds erased on purpose. They told stories of dead colonies, of maps that shifted to hide old crimes. Some even whispered the oldest of old tales, that there was once a death world, home of a species so dangerous, so violent, that even the galaxy's strongest fleets had not been able to conquer it. The council, they said, had buried the memory of that world to keep peace. Terran listened, but said nothing. He walked with his head down, but inside his chest his heart felt like a drum calling soldiers to battle, because he knew what the whispers never dared say aloud. The erased world was not myth. It was Earth. In the council chamber, unease spread like fire under stone. Some members wanted the matter buried again, sealed under a new layer of lies. Others feared it was already too late. The beacon in the chamber floor had flashed. Something old had stirred. Elder Varos paced behind closed doors. His voice shook with anger as he argued with his peers. If word spreads, if anyone dares to believe that the missing world was real, then all our history becomes a lie. Do you want that? Do you want to see every empire question the foundation of our order? Another elder, a woman with silver skin, spoke quietly. It is not about what we want. The humans are here. They know. And if they know, then soon the galaxy will know. We cannot erase them again. The room grew silent at that, unwanted. To say aloud why humanity had been erased the first time, none wanted to admit the truth. Behind locked doors, the human delegation spoke in whispers of their own. 3 of them, dressed in plain dark cloth, gathered in a narrow chamber, lit only by a single lamp. The tall woman, Captain Marin, stood with arms folded, eyes cold. The younger man with winter eyes leaned against the wall, jaw tight. The older one with the limp sat in silence until he finally spoke. They saw it, he said. Marin nodded. The hole is no longer hidden. Their archivist stumbled into it. The council is rattled. The younger man let out a low laugh. Good. Let them rattle. They buried Earth because they feared us. Perhaps it is time they remember why. Gaze hardened. Not yet. If we reveal too soon, they will unite against us. They must reveal themselves first. They must speak their guilt with their own mouths. The old man tapped the table softly. And if they refuse, Marin's eyes gleamed like steel, and Earth will speak for itself. Terran could not stay away from the archive servers, even after being warned. Even after feeling the humans' gaze on him like a weight. It needed answers night after night. He returned to the console. He pulled fragments of history, old transmissions, erased footnotes buried under corrupted files. Slowly, a picture formed. The picture was of a war older than any he had ever read about. A war not written in official records, but preserved in the scars of erased data. Fleets had moved, planets had burned. But in every record, one symbol returned, a blue-green world marked with the symbol of a warning sun. That was the world the council had erased. That was Earth. Taran pressed his palms against the console and whispered to himself, why? What did they fear so much that they buried it? He got his answer sooner than he expected. Walking home one night, Taran felt footsteps behind him. He turned, heart pounding. Captain Marin stood there, her face hidden under a hood. You've been digging, she said. Her voice was not angry, but heavy. Taran swallowed hard. I had to know. And what do you know? He hesitated. The street around them was empty, the air still. I know the erased world was Earth. I know. It was not a myth. I know the council lied. Erin's eyes narrowed, though her face remained calm. She stepped closer, close enough for Taran to see the scar by her eye. And do you know why they lied? Taran shook his head. Because they could not defeat us, she whispered. Because they feared what would happen if the galaxy remembered. What humanity truly was. Her words hit Taran like a storm. He stared, unable to speak. He had guessed at lies, guessed at secrets, but to hear the truth from a human's own lips felt like standing at the edge of a chasm and looking down into endless dark. Marin leaned close. Do not speak of this to anyone, archivist. If you do, you may not live to see another dawn. That night, Taran lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his heart hammered like a machine out of control. He finally understood why the council laughed. It wasn't because they believed it was a glitch. It was because they knew exactly what he had found, and in a quiet chamber across the city. The human delegation spoke in silence until Captain Marin broke it with a single sentence that carried the weight of a storm. They know we're still here. The only question is how long until they remember the war we buried. For centuries, the star maps had carried silence. But now the silence was broken. It began as a whisper in the void, so faint the archive scanners nearly missed it. A pulse, buried beneath radiation static, hidden behind layers of false noise. But the beacon had waited too long, slept too deeply, to remain unseen forever. The moment Terran forced the console to look at the erased coordinates, something old stirred. The signal spread. It traveled on waves no natural sun could make, slipping past shields, crawling into sensors, humming inside the bones of every ship. Traders felt their nav systems blink.
Miners saw their drills stutter.
Children woke screaming from dreams of fire. The galaxy, without knowing, had heard Earth's call. Terran sat at his console when it happened. At first he thought it was another glitch, another scar in the old data. But then the console flared with red light, throwing symbols across. The wall, the beacon, was awake. His mouth went dry. He ran the translation filters, but the signal was too old, too layered. It wasn't language, it was a code. A code that kept repeating the same shape, a circle split by a line. He whispered to himself, "It's not a distress call." A key. Behind him, the archive lights dimmed, as if the building itself felt uneasy. Across the galaxy, fleets scrambled. In the capital system, the Council's war room shook with alarms. Admirals barked orders, but every chart they pulled up showed the same thing. A single source, pulsing from the erased coordinates. The null sector was no longer silent. Merchants abandoned routes. Pirates halted raids. Even the slavers who prowled. The outer dark turned their ships away. No one wanted to drift near the place where a world had once been and where something nameless was now calling. "Identify it," Elder Veros demanded, his voice cracking as the chamber filled with reports. But no one could. Terran should have hidden. He should have stayed silent, like the Council wanted. But curiosity burned hotter than fear. He traced the signal back to its source. The erased coordinates glowed on his screen, bright enough to blind. He felt sweat beat on his skin. His hands tremble as the translation layers peeled away one by one. At last, a shape emerged. Not numbers, not warnings, a crest. It was the image of a blue and green world circled by iron wings. The symbol pulsed once, then vanished, leaving Taran breathless. "It's them," he whispered. "It's always been them, and they're sealed." Chamber, the human delegation already knew. They did not need scanners to tell them. They'd been waiting. Captain Marin stood at the center, her hands pressed against the table. The older man with the limp closed his eyes as if hearing an old song. The younger man bared his teeth in something that was not quite a smile. "It's begun," Marin said quietly. The old man nodded. "The fleets will wake." The younger man clenched his fists. "Then the galaxy will remember." The Council panicked. They summoned emergency sessions, but their voices shook. "What if it's a trap?" One elder shouted. "What if it's not?" Another answered. Reports poured in. Static storms in nearby systems. Strange shadows moving against dead. Moon's engines failing without reason. The beacon was more than a signal, it was pressure. It bent the galaxy around it like a stone dropped in water, but the Council could not say the one word they all feared to speak. Humanity, Terran found. Captain Marin, waiting for him in the archive once more. She stood in silence until he finally whispered, "It's a beacon. It's calling something." She nodded slowly, "Yes. It is calling warships." The words hit him like a blade. Warships. But it has slept for millennia. Nothing could survive so long. Her gaze was steady. "You underestimate us, archivist. You underestimate Earth. When our people knew the Council would try to erase us, they built fleets not for years or centuries, but for the ages. Machines that would sleep in silence until they were called. Until the map was forced to see what had been hidden." Terran's throat tightened. "And now they will come. They will come." she said. And nothing in this galaxy will stop them. That night, above a forgotten moon, on the edge of the null sector, space itself seemed to shiver. Long shadows moved, vast holes covered in dust, scarred by time but not broken. Engines that had not burned in 10,000 years flickered to life. Glowing like the eyes of giants, the beacon pulsed again, louder, faster, and in the silence between heartbeats. The first of the ancient human warships opened its eyes. For generations, the galaxy had believed that old ships could not survive the weight of time. Even the greatest empires lost their fleets to rust, to silence, to the endless hunger of space. But when the beacon pulsed again from the missing coordinates, when the signal hummed across every channel like a heartbeat that did not belong to any living thing, the truth came out. Some fleets did not die, some fleets only slept, and now they were waking at the far edge of the null sector. A mining vessel named Shara's Gift was the first to report it. The crew had been drilling into an asteroid belt when their scanners, lit up with impossible readings, mass shadows moving in the dark. The captain thought it was a storm. Storms did not move in formation. Then the crew saw them, out of the black slit enormous shapes. Jagged and scarred, holes covered in the dust of 1,000 years. No running lights, no transponders, but their silhouettes told the story. Battleships. Dozens, hundreds. The crew of Shara's Gift fled in silence, broadcasting only one broken message before they vanished into jump space. They're here, old but alive. The council chamber burned with arguments. Elders slammed their fists on the stone table, voices cracking as reports poured in from every corner of the stars. Traders spoke of ghostly shadows tailing their ships. Patrols reported engines failing. As Titanic warships drifted past without a word, "They are not attacking," Elder Vero snapped. "They are relics, derelict machines caught in gravity tides." But another elder shouted back, "Machines do not fly in formation. Machines do not answer a beacon that should not exist." Silence followed. Every eye turned to the humans seated at the back of the chamber, silent as shadows. Captain Marin met their gaze with calm fire. "They are not machines," she said. "They are ours." The council erupted in fear. In the archive, Tareen could not look away from the data streaming across his console. The warships were not random wrecks. They were responding to orders. Old orders. He found the sequence buried in the beacon's pulse. It was a simple command, repeated again and again. Awaken, form, await. His blood went cold. This was not an accident. This was not a broken signal. This was a fleet, obeying its masters, even after thousands of years of silence. Terran leaned back, trembling. His people had laughed at him, called him foolish. The galaxy would tremble because of what he had found. The council demanded answers. They pressed the humans, threatened them, shouted at them. But Captain Marin remained unbroken. "You erased Earth from your maps," she said coldly. "You buried us in silence. You feared us because you could not defeat us. And now your fear is waking the very thing you tried to kill." An elder slammed his fist down. "You mean to threaten us with ghosts?" Marin's eyes narrowed. "These are no ghosts. These are our warships, built for the day the council's lies would fail. They are awake now. They are waiting. And if you strike first, they will not forgive." The chamber fell silent. The elders, for all their power, looked like children who had just seen a monster crawl out of the dark. Later, Terran met Marin in the archive once more. His voice shook. "Why did you build them? Why did you leave them here, sleeping?" She studied him, her scarred face unreadable. "Because we knew the council. We knew fear is never satisfied. We knew they would try to erase us, so we built what they could not erase. A fleet that would survive even if our people did not." Terran's chest tightened. "And now? What happens now?" Her answer was simple, sharp as steel. "Now the galaxy chooses. Kneel to truth or burn in lies." On the edge of the null sector, the first warship broke formation. It was massive, larger than any vessel still in service. Its hull, a fortress of black iron, its cannons silent but waiting. The ship turned slowly toward the Council's capital system. Its engines flared, and then, in a moment that froze every sensor across the stars, the warship jumped. When it reappeared, it was in orbit above the Council's very world, silent, watching, a giant from the past. Staring down at the rulers who had tried to erase its people, the Council had believed its chamber untouchable. Their towers pierced the clouds of the capital. The world, their shields glowed brighter than any star, and their fleets patrolled the skies in endless circuits. They thought themselves safe, because power had always meant safety. But when the human warship arrived, dropping from the void like a shadow with teeth, every illusion of safety shattered. It began with silence. The orbital defenses, vast rings of weapons built to deter entire invasions, detected the human warship instantly. Blared command screens lit with red, and admirals shouted orders. But before a single cannon could fire, every system froze. Lights dimmed. Targeting arrays blinked. Entire networks crashed as if crushed under an invisible hand. The defense commanders looked at each other in horror. Their fortress world had just gone blind. Above them, the human ship hung in orbit like a predator at rest. It did not fire. It did not move. It only watched inside the chamber. Chaos reigned. Elders shouted over each other, some calling for negotiation, others demanding retaliation. Launch everything we have. Veros roared, slamming his fist on the stone table. It is one ship. One. Burn it from the sky before others arrive. Another. Elder snapped back. Do you not see? Your ship shut down our defenses without firing a shot? You think we can burn them? Can't even see them. The chamber doors creaked as the human delegation entered. They moved with calm steps, cutting through the storm of voices. Captain Marin's gaze swept the room like a blade. You feel it now, she said. What we felt when you erased us. Power pressed against your throat. The chamber fell silent. Marin stood before the elders, her voice cold and steady. We did not come here for blood. But blood will come if you continue to lie. Tell the truth. Tell the galaxy why you erased Earth from your maps. The elders shifted uncomfortably. To admit the truth would mean destroying centuries of lies, breaking the foundation of their rule. But Marin's eyes were relentless. Behind her, the younger human warrior folded his arms. The older man with the limp leaned heavily on his cane, but said nothing. His silence felt heavier than steel. Veros finally broke, his voice rising with desperation. You were dangerous, you were uncontrollable. We fought you, and you would not bow. So we removed you for the good of all. Gasps rippled through the chamber. Not one elder had dared speak the truth in public for thousands of years. And now it was out. From the gallery above, Terran watched, heart pounding. He had brought the crystal map with him, hidden under his cloak. He had not planned to reveal it, but when Veros shouted the truth, Terran knew the time had come. He stepped forward. You lied to us all, he said, voice trembling but loud enough to echo in the chamber. He held up the crystal. This is the original Prime map. It shows the world you erased, Earth. Proof of what you hid. The elders stared in horror.
Out.
One shouted for guards, but the guards hesitated, their eyes flicking nervously toward the humans. Marin's eyes gleamed with fire. She turned toward Terran and nodded once. The council had no more shields of silence. The truth was out. The galaxy was already hearing the signal of Earth's return. Now their own chamber had given it voice. Some elders collapsed into silence. Others begged for negotiation. Veros still shouted for war, but even his voice cracked with fear. Marin's reply was sharp as a blade. Then choose. Admit your crime to the galaxy and stand trial under Earth's judgmentor. Watch as every forgotten warship awakens. The elders trembled. For the first time in centuries, their power was not theirs. It was borrowed, and the debt had come. Due above the world, the human warship moved. Slowly, deliberately, its cannons shifted into position. Entire cities fell silent as citizens looked to the sky and saw death waiting in orbit. The ship's engines flared once, not firing, only flexing, like a beast stretching its claws. And then, through every channel, on every frequency, the ship's voice echoed in a single, chilling message. Earth remembers. The words spread across the stars, unstoppable, undeniable. And with them came the promise that the war humanity, never finished, was about to begin again. For 1,000 years, the galaxy believed in peace. For 1,000 years, the Council told its people that war had been driven away, buried beneath treaties and law. But the beacon had awakened more than ships. It had awakened memory. And memory is harder to kill than fleets. Terran's hands shook as he slid the crystal into the archive console. His heart pounded so loudly he thought the guards outside might hear it. The display flared to life, and for a moment he saw only static. Then the static cleared and a new folder appeared. Its title burned against the dark screen, The War. We buried, he hesitated. Every archivist was trained to protect records. He was about to betray the Council, betray everything his order was built upon. But he had already gone too far. With a breath that tasted like iron, Terran opened the file. The chamber filled with light. Images poured out battle after battle, fleets tearing into each other, skies burning above worlds. He saw human ships, massive and brutal, engines glowing. Like fire, he saw alien fleets outnumbering them 10-1. And breaking against them like waves on stone, he saw Earth, a blue and green world, scarred but unbroken, its surface covered in fire and ash, but its people still fighting, in the council chamber. The elders watched the same file as it was projected. For all to see, some covered their faces in shame, others stared, frozen. Citizens across the galaxy tuned in, their networks overridden by the broadcast. The truth spilled out. The Council had waged war against Earth. They had brought fleets greater than any before, and still they had failed. Humanity did not bow. Humanity did not break. At last, Elder Veros shouted over the chaos, his voice cracking. They were too strong. They would have conquered us all. We had no choice but to erase them before they erased us. The chamber erupted in screams of outrage. The people who had trusted the Council's lies for centuries now saw the truth with their own eyes. The file shifted again, showing the final battles. Alien dreadnoughts falling into oceans, burning cities still fighting from the rubble, human. Soldiers charging through smoke with weapons older than most empires. Faces covered in blood, but eyes alive with fury. One scene froze Taryn's heart. A human commander, armor torn, standing on a ruined hill. Behind him, the flag of Earth still flew, scorched but not destroyed. He shouted into the Cum's voice, ragged but unbroken, erase us if you can. We are already carved into your stars. Then the image cut to static. Captain Marin stood in the council chamber, her voice steady, almost to calm. You tried to erase us, she said. You failed. And when you could not kill us, you buried us in silence. You stole our name from your maps, from your schools. From your histories, you made children forget we ever existed. Her eyes swept across the chamber, burning into every elder. But Earth never forgot. We remembered every life you took, remembered every lie you told. And now the galaxy remembers. 2. The younger human warrior stepped forward. His voice was sharp, filled with rage. Your empires thought we were gone, but our fleets still sleep in the dark. And now they are awake. You will answer for the buried war. In the gallery, Terran's knees shook. He had seen the proof with his own eyes, felt the truth crawl into his skin. Humanity had fought the galaxy and survived. Not only survived, but struck such fear into the Council that they erased the very idea of them. If the fleets truly returned, if those ancient warships now gathered, the galaxy would not survive. Not in the form it knew. But as he looked at Marin, he felt something else beneath the fear. Humanity had been wronged. Earth had been erased. And maybe, just maybe, the galaxy deserved the storm that was coming. Above the Council's world, the ancient warship shifted in orbit. Its cannons glowed faintly as if remembering their purpose. And then, for the first time in 10,000 years, the warship spoke in a voice that shook every city below. We are Earth. You buried us in silence. Now we bury you in truth. Across the stars, more signals lit up. Warships stirred in forgotten systems, turning their hulls toward the heart of the galaxy. The buried war was no longer buried. It was awake. The galaxy had judged humanity once. They had called Earth dangerous, uncontrollable, too wild to be allowed. Among the stars, the Council had declared itself protector of peace and erased an entire world, believing silence would keep them safe. But now, the silence was broken. The warships were awake, and the galaxy discovered what it meant when judgment came from Earth instead. From the edge of the null sector, ancient fleets stirred. Vessels the size of mountains drifted free of dust. Clouds, engines growling to life. Some had slept in orbit around dead stars, others beneath the crusts of forgotten moons, hidden by camouflage fields older than living memory. Now, all turned toward the Council's beacon. Entire systems trembled as thousands of massive warships aligned into formations. Even damaged and scarred by age, their sheer size dwarfed every modern vessel. The sight of them filled the comm channels with static, as if the galaxy itself was afraid to look directly. Reports spread like wildfire. Merchant guilds abandoned trade routes, colonies sealed their ports, pirate bands surrendered without a fight, scattering into hiding holes in the dark. The Council's member worlds demanded answers. Why had Earth been erased? Why had their leaders buried the truth? The more the Council tried to calm the storm, the more their lies unraveled. Every broadcast, every uncovered file added fuel to the fire. On dozens of worlds, riots erupted. Citizens tore down the Council's banners, shouting only one phrase that echoed across the stars: Earth remembers. The Council chamber no longer looked like the seat of power. The elders sat pale and shaken, their voices hushed, their authority crumbling. Elder Veros clung to anger, his voice still rising above the others. They cannot rule us, he shouted. They are one species. One. We are the Council, we command billions. Do you want to kneel to ghosts? But even as he spoke, the chamber shook with the vibration of engines in orbit. The human warship above their skies had not fired a shot, yet it felt like the world itself knelt beneath its weight. Captain Marin stepped forward, flanked by the younger warrior and the elder with the limp. Her face was carved from steel. The voice was colder than the void. This galaxy judged us once, she said. You erased us, buried us, called us myth. We survived. Now the time has come for us to judge you. She looked across the chamber, her eyes catching every trembling elder. You will stand trial before Earth. You will confess your crimes to every world you deceived. You will kneel to truth. Your fleets, your cities, your very stars will burn. The chamber shook with gasps. Some elders wept openly. Others bowed their heads, too broken to resist. But Veros snarled, slamming his fist on the table. Never, we'll never kneel to humans. From the gallery, Terran stepped forward, his voice trembling, but filled with desperate courage. Captain, please, he said. If your fleets destroy the Council, you destroy more than liars. You destroy innocents who never knew the truth. The galaxy does not need fire. It needs truth. If you burn them, you become what they claimed you were. Aaron's gaze flicked toward him. For a long moment, silence hung heavy. The younger human's fists tightened in fury, but the old man with the limp spoke at last. He is right. The elder said softly, the Council deserves judgment. But judgment is not slaughter. Let the truth be the fire. Let the galaxy see them kneel. Marin's eyes softened just enough to show thought. She looked back at the Council, her voice steady. Very well, she said. You will not burn, not yet, but you will kneel. The galaxy will see your lies. The galaxy will hear your confession. Earth will rise again, not in silence, but in truth. Pharaoh spat on the floor. We will never confess. Marin turned to the ceiling, as if speaking to the warship above. Then the fleets will decide. Above the capital world, the human warship shifted. Its cannons glowed, lighting the sky like false suns. And then, across the stars, other signals joined it, one by one. The awakened fleets aligned their weapons toward the heart of the galaxy. Entire sectors went dark as human warships fell into position. A single message thundered across every channel, carried on the voice of 1,000 ancient ships: kneel or vanish. The galaxy froze. The judgment of Earth had begun. The galaxy had lived with silence for too long. For centuries, the maps had shown a blank square where Earth once was. Children had been taught it was nothing. Navigators had charted courses around it, and historians had dared not even whisper the name. But now the silence was broken. The fleets were awake. The galaxy had to face the world it had tried to erase. The council chamber was no longer a throne of power. The elders sat in silence, their robes heavy, their voices gone. Above them, the warship loomed in orbit, its cannons glowing faintly like the eyes of judgment. Captain Marin stood at the center, her figure still and unshaken. Her voice echoed. "Through the chamber, you buried Earth in lies. You said we were too dangerous, too wild. You erased us from your maps because you feared what you could not control. But fear cannot erase truth. The world you tried to hide has returned." The elders bowed their heads. Some wept. Elder Vero still clenched his fists, but his eyes had gone hollow. Even he could no longer deny the weight pressing down on them. Across 1,000 worlds, the broadcast played. Citizens watched the council. Confess. Their words dragged out by the weight of humanity's fleets hanging above them. The truth spread faster than fire. People shouted in the streets. Riots turned into celebrations. On distant colonies, workers stopped their machines to watch the image of Earth's warships fill the sky. For the first time in 10,000 years, the name Earth was spoken without fear. Terran stood before the console in the archive, the prime map glowing before him. For so long, it had shown the blank square, the lie that had poisoned generations. His fingers hovered above the controls, his heart pounding. He whispered to himself, "This is history. This is truth." With a single command, he restored the coordinates. The map shifted, the blank square filled with light. And there it was, a blue-green world. Glowing bright among the stars, no longer erased, Terran felt tears in his eyes. For once the galaxy's map was whole. The fleets gathered in perfect formation above the capital, silent but unstoppable. Their weapons were still aimed, but they did not fire. Instead, from the lead warship, a new signal spread across every channel. It was not a threat. It was a vow. "We are Earth. We are humanity. You tried to erase us, but we endured. We return not as silence, but as truth. The galaxy will remember us now forever." The message repeated, carried by every awakened. Ship echoed across every system. The council could no longer rule. Their power shattered, their lies exposed, they surrendered their seats. One by one, their banners were lowered from the chamber walls. In their place, a single new banner was raised, Earth's flag, scorched but unbroken, carried across time. By the fleets that never died, the galaxy was no longer theirs. It belonged to truth. Truth belonged to Earth. In the quiet aftermath, Terran stood with Captain Marin on the archive balcony, watching the skies glow with the engines of the warships. "What happens now?" Terran asked softly. Marin's eyes were steady. "Now we rebuild. Not just Earth, but the galaxy. No more lies. No more erased worlds. From this day, the map will be honest. Every star will know the name humanity." Terran nodded, his chest heavy with both fear and hope. For the first time, he felt the galaxy might remember its past not as chains, but as fire to light the future. Far away, in the depths of forgotten space, more fleets stirred. Beacons long silent blinked awake. Across dead systems, engines flared. The galaxy would learn that Earth's return was not the end, but only the beginning. On the prime map, the world that had once been erased now glowed brighter than all others. And a final message echoed across the stars, carved into every signal, every map, every fleet: "Erase us once, and you erase yourselves." That the missing world had returned. The galaxy would never forget again.